Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who's listening to me on this new edition of TestFlix. I'm thankful to the Test Tribe community to inviting me for a new talk on TestFlix. My name is Vikas Mehta. I am a global president with a leading consulting company. And today I'm going to talk about a topic which is probably on the minds of everyone, whether it is the hardcore techies, the businesses, small enterprise, startups, as well as the common consumer, which is about metaverse. Let's first start by understanding what is metaverse. Metaverse is not a technology or a device. It's not a service by any single company. I know Facebook has renamed themselves as Meta, but they don't really control metaverse. Metaverse is the convergence of separate technologies, all of which are quickly becoming mainstream use, are maturing to become applicable to the use cases you and I evolve or look after every other day. It essentially brings an immersive three-dimensional environment in which users can interact with each other as if they are operating in the same shared space. So, with all those virtual conferences, with all those virtual calls, which you and I have been having for the last 2 years over Microsoft Teams, Metaverse can actually bring us together and make us feel that we are all in the same room, thereby probably making the hybrid workplace a true reality. It is essentially an amalgamation of bringing together of our digital and the physical world together and create a unified, uniform user experience across both digital and physical world, where the boundaries between the digital and the physical world will continue to blur. Metaverse is really expected to become its own native economy and bring in digital native assets and trade together at one point of time. And with all these benefits or with all these definitions of metaverse, I believe why everyone is talking about metaverse is essentially the large economic upgrowth which metaverse brings in itself. In the last 2 years, companies which are focused on metaverse have actually raised $10.4 billion, and metaverse as an economy is expected to grow to $800 billion in next few years. That is something which nobody can truly ignore or can again call it as a fad anymore. It is something real. In fact, just today in our newspaper, I read about a large Indian e-commerce company launching their own flippers. So Flipkart is a large e-commerce company in India, a direct competitor of Amazon. They're launching a new digital ecosystem called Flippers, which allows the users of Flipkart to shop from Flippers as if they're walking in a mall. So you get the experience of walking in a mall, shopping from a mall, from a digital world, sitting in the comfort of your own home. That is probably one of the most common use case which we would see of metaverse in the coming years. But will we believe or do we believe that the metaverse would really take off? I think there can be three logical uh, growth paths for metaverse by the early 2030. That is, in another 8 years, metaverse can either gain very low acceptance in the general public, which probably would lead to a more fragmented marketplace, lack of use cases of applicability to daily use cases, high adoption for metaverse in some sectors like retail, e-commerce, commute from work from home. There will be few use cases where metaverse will be adopted at a very high level, but there will be maybe very limited enterprise-wide adaptation of metaverse, and there may be inconsistent regulation of how you really control the metaverse or the digital world. The next use case can be that we gain mild acceptance of metaverse, which basically can survive where every digital ecosystem exists in their own space, but there is lack of interoperability between different digital ecosystems. That I may have a metaverse universe for the e-commerce and retail. I may have a metaverse universe for my corporate enterprise work. I may have a metaverse universe for my own banking solutions, but they may not interoperate with each other. But at the same time, with these independent ecosystem existing, it would lead to a high level of merger and acquisition or consolidation of players in this metaverse universe. It would also enable for companies to compete with each other for users through exclusivity. And it will bring in the principle of self-governance to all these metaverse platforms. The best use case which can happen for metaverse is a industrialized acceptance. That is a broad-based acceptance between corporates, governments, and the users and the world at large of metaverse as something real, which would truly benefit the complete human ecosystem because that would probably lead to less burn of carbon footprint for everyone else. It essentially means that we may have a seamless interaction between the physical and the virtual world. Your metaverse identity may actually become equivalent to your physical identity. We may have all the metaverse universe ecosystems operating with each other in a more interoperable environment using open APIs, communicating with each other. We may have a more pervasive adoption of consumer and enterprise market to metaverse, and we may see strong governance with regulatory support. I think there are already talks about allowing digital coins or digital currency, some regulatory support in some countries. And I think that probably is a step forward to essentially making our digital economy equivalent or as real as our physical economy. What are the four factors which are truly impacting the growth of metaverse at this point? I think the first factor is standardization. How do you really work on standardizing the entire ecosystem where everybody can actually work together and create interoperable APIs, interoperable technology, which can be leveraged across? How can you create one single unified economy across all the platforms on metaverse, or how do you create one single digital currency which is acceptable across all transactions? The other big reason which is impacting the growth of metaverse is the market fragmentation. How many leaders in the metaverse market would truly emerge or succeed? How many use cases can we think of where metaverse will be truly applicable and bring value? How much competition can the market allow, and how does the competition impact the innovation? Because understand one thing, metaverse is a digital world, and without innovation, without fresh ideas, and without startups in the ecosystem, metaverse would not sustain for a long term gains. But at the same time, how do you really bring different platforms which are serving different use cases together to serve one common purpose, to bring interoperability and trust to the consumers? The next one is the user interface. How do you create an interface which is immersive in nature but does not lead to a negative impact on a user's health? How do you allow people to switch between their physical and digital world in a seamless fashion that they really don't feel that they are switching from one to another? But at the same time, the most critical aspect of all of it is how do you bring regulatory backing to the metaverse? Because until and unless metaverse has regulatory backing, governance established, it will be difficult for it to scale to become a complement and a supplement to our physical world. So metaverse has to get to a stage where not only the content but even the conduct of people is regulated. There are laws which can prevent the privacy. There are laws which can prevent the personas of the individuals who are functioning or operating in the metaverse world. What do you believe are the top 6 or 8 risk or quality concerns which you see as a techie in the metaverse world? I think the first and foremost for me will be my identity and reputation, because metaverse is looking to a stage where my physical identity or my digital identity are interchangeable. I'm recognized in the digital world as I'm recognized in the physical world, and I can swap and use those identities in either ways. So I'll be very, very scared if somebody can hack into or alter my digital persona, which will impact my physical well-being as well. I would also be very, very concerned as a content creator myself if somebody can essentially claim ownership to the content I have created or fake ownership of the content which is created by someone else, or possibly leverage my content without any approval from me. With our economy moving towards a digital economy, all of us become more and more prone to digital thefts or frauds in the digital world. They are already happening. We already see so many use cases where people are scammed into losing real money, real physical money from their bank accounts using digital means. Just extrapolate that to a digital world, how it will impact in the digital economy. User data and privacy are the next big thing as a quality concerns for me, as well as eavesdropping. I'm creating content, I'm living my life in a metaverse world. In the digital world, I don't want anybody snooping around my digital presence. As our digital presence and physical presence intermingle, they become interchangeable. It becomes important that my digital presence does not lead me to more harassment in the digital world and create a risk for my own personal safety in the physical world. We already see body shaming, name calling, so many harassments happening in the digital world, with metaverse being so much more than the current digital ecosystem. This may only increase. The other concern I have is jurisdiction. We need regulation. We need government control. We need somebody as an authority to tell us what's right, what's not. We as human beings need somebody to tell us and keep us in control. But how do I know that there is enough jurisdiction and not more? So that essentially a higher level of jurisdiction can also stop free flow of content and the free flow of leverage of metaverse technology to actual use cases. All of this is important, but what is of equal importance is the user experience, the accessibility of the metaverse applications, the hardware which will make it enabled for me to leverage metaverse experience. All of these things are equally important. So, from my opinion, what should be the top 5 things you should focus on when you talk about testing strategy in the metaverse world? And the first and foremost is your security and identity protection testing. The security testing has to go beyond what we do today and has to really, really focus on strongly on identity protection. Because the metaverse world increases the complexity of the application which you are testing to 10x, 20x, 100x, because it gives more pathways for the cyber bullies to attack. It's an open API economy, interoperability being the main piece. It gives more opportunity for people to attack, as well as steal the identity, the digital identity of somebody else. That way, it essentially becomes imperative for any organization in the metaverse world to think more about security and penetration testing. Accessibility testing becomes even more important because that is where you have to really focus on how you can truly and importantly make your applications, your hardware more accessible. How do you really monitor the hardware infrastructure available to the users to ensure that they have high level of accessibility? I think one thing which is given in the metaverse world is we are creating a digital world to give users a real life feeling. Now, when you're giving users a real life feeling, interactivity and immersiveness of the application would only increase. And this is actually a good news for all the functional testers out there who believe that with automation and with metaverse being digital, our need would decrease. This is actually an area. Immersive testing is an area where we need more skilled testers to be there because you have to actually test the use case of the application in the real world with the digital hardware of the metaverse world. You need to figure out, is the application immersive enough to give me a good digital experience, or it's actually on the wrong side, giving me headaches and motion sickness? Do I have enough, or what is the definition of enough space when I am using a digital headphone or a digital headgear or eye gear to play games in the metaverse world? How much space do I need around me to operate and effectively leverage the metaverse world, the metaverse game I'm playing, and be able to enjoy it? So you need all of that. You need real testers to do all of this. Audio and video quality testing could become even more important from today's world in metaverse, because that is essentially what metaverse is all about, giving you real life experience and audio and video. And that essentially means that your cloud infrastructure, which is leveraged to stream your audio and video, has to be regularly monitored. We have to find, as a tester, you have to find way of how I can validate or test the cloud infrastructure leverage for streaming in a metaverse environment where thousands of people can actually be watching or listening to the same content at the same time. Finally, I think hardware testing, which typically in our engineering world today, we don't consider as part of scope of testing for QA, would actually become a critical part of testing for QA in the metaverse world, because all of this is linked with the hardware, the headphones, the headgear, the eye gear, which you're leveraging or using to live or enjoy the metaverse world, that essentially becomes important for us to leverage in the hardware testing. I think that's pretty much it for my talk today. I'm really thankful to you guys to give me a talk. I'm thankful to Test Drive to give me an opportunity to speak.